World Junior Championships. And the Norwegian team, I hear them come into the hallway, and they said to our guys team, we'll switch you our girls team for your girls team. And I like pulled the covers up high, and I'm like, I read the joy of St. Francis. I mean, just, if we don't have such moral fiber, and if, you know, when you're out there, apart from, say, your family or your team or whatever, you know, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you're your weakest link, or if your athlete you've formed is out there on their own and they don't have that bedrock foundation of virtue, they're going to encounter stuff they can't say no to. They're going to fail, and they're going to wonder why. But if they're strong, and if they've been strengthened by your program and by the building efforts you make within your team, they're going to have something. They're going to have something others don't. I could echo the words of St. Paul when he said, I do not do what I want to do, but what I hate. I do not do what I want to do, but what I hate. And every one of us can say that in so many facets of our lives. Like, why can't we just be the people we are created to be, know we should be? And I wrestled within myself eventually for what became a year. Should I quit ski racing? Should I quit ski racing? I didn't have peace on the field. I'd gone to three world championships in skiing. I'd been to arguably the top of it, and I wasn't fulfilled. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? You know there's something more. And I wouldn't take a day back that I ski raced. I mean, I loved every bit that formed me for. You know, there was a reason I did that. But what am I beyond the ski racing? And that's what was on my heart, plaguing me as I would race. I finally had no peace. I thought, there is something more. God is calling me to a higher, loftier goal. I have to lay myself down and lose myself in Him. And I would say, as the scripture says, you know, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and he loses his soul? I would be skiing along and just saying to myself, what does it profit me if I win that gold medal and I go to hell on the day of judgment? Because I conformed to the world. Because I didn't speak up and say, hey coach, no, I really need to get to Mass. I really need you to make concession. I'm not practicing with you on this morning. I've got to go to Mass. I want to go to Mass. I want to be there. It's kind of cool. I was actually the only skier on the team who felt like I had family everywhere in the world. I found Mass everywhere. I'm just going to encourage you, do a little research. If you go to Finland, the parishes are few and far between. That was the one place I accidentally, once I returned to ski racing with definitely my head on straight, my family in tow, and able to really have my domestic church with me and my team, as it were. I mean, that's what I built my team around, was my family and my faith. But once that was the case and we were traveling in that way, we only ever missed Mass in Finland. It's out there. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. I mean, I was looking at Mass this morning. I was like, there must be some really fierce rivalries in this room. Like, you guys see each other in season. I was thinking how awesome a communion, a common union, a communion we have in the Holy Eucharist. That we aim to achieve victory, but aim at it rightly. That's at least the goal, that we would keep that communion at the most important level, even in our rightful attempt to gain victory. So there I am. I mean, I'm still in Europe. I'm not happy with this. I decided eventually to retire, and that was a shocker. Why, when you're like the next skiing prodigy in the US, why would you not ski race? Why? It wasn't even necessarily something I could explain away in words, but I just knew that I was following my heart and that Christ had totally, totally convicted me that it needed to be that way. I'm going to draw out for us just some differences between individual athletics and team sport. And you guys obviously, you know the team sport dynamisms even more intricately than I do. But I see it as, the individuals are all encouraged. you're only as strong as your weakest link. You need everyone out there to be ready to play. You need them to bring their game, you know, get your game face on, game on, that sort of thing. You need everyone to collectively bring their A game. And so you have that sum total of everyone's gifts and abilities and the baggage they bring to the field or the court that day. And you have to work around that. So whether it's organically occurring or it's a painstaking buildup, there's always going to be a goal within that team that everyone be happy and healthy. And I challenge you to holiness. It's not just that your team members are happy and healthy, but how can you impact, we've talked about this today, how can you impact their holiness? That's a role you've taken up by embracing your role as coach in a Catholic school. You can't compartmentalize it and make it one or the other, or not so much this and more that. It's like, just get that hierarchy set and stay focused. Let me switch page here. On the contrary, that individual athlete, they rely so heavily on themselves. They're largely their own source, both of encouragement and discouragement. What I would have given to have had a team, like when I was getting down and dismal and just like, this isn't going so well, but to have the rallying of people behind me, or a coach right field side within earshot or eyeshot of me who could give me a cue to get myself back together. You have such a great gift to give them of being a team, right? What does team stand for? What's together, everyone achieves more. Together, everyone achieves more. And so that can be your boast, is that together everyone achieves more for Christ too. Okay, not just more for themselves, but more for the team. More for the team. The kid who's not your starter, can he carry the water jug out there with love? Can he be inspired to be a servant of all? Can he don the uniform and be praised for his efforts that impact the team? Okay, on a team level. Even on the greatest of teams, like say the U.S. ski team, they're comprised of individual skiers. And we're sitting there, we've got to beat the very person we're sitting across the table from. The very person you're buckled up next to in the van on the way to the race. The person you might even have to share a bed with is can be your top competitor. So, for those of us who coach individual athletes and things, how do you keep that competition healthy? How do you keep the fair play element in there? Everyone has a rightful aim to achieve that victory, right? Everyone wants to win. Everyone should be supported to do their best. The only athlete they can worry about is themselves. But if they can give 100%, and as that movie says, perfect effort. A perfect effort. Anyone on your team could be praised for giving a perfect effort for what they bring. You know, it's interesting when a coach tries to coach a team of individuals, because they give a lot of advice about how things are going to go, but it's always kind of like you pour in a little, put a little garnish of backsliding tactics to beat your teammate if that's who your rival is. But it can all be done in a healthy way, and that should be within our programs. And if we don't quite know how to do that, how to coach the whole person, we can figure that out. We can get to that maturity. Whoa, am I clicking through things? Coach Joe Walters will be. I am talking right on top of the computer. Let me just close that because I can't. So while oftentimes you're traveling to games and training and it's kind of hunky-dory team time, man, when the gloves come off and the game face goes on, watch out. But let's train our young people the proper and virtuous way to do that. Because that's what they need for victory, but they've got to do it in virtue. True sportsmanship then rejoices in the success of others without making excuses for its poor performance or being boastful when it's the victor. And I struggled with that a lot. It's like, if I didn't win, because I won all the time, and if I didn't win, man, there had to be some really lame excuse that I had to tell everybody. Help your athletes learn virtue that can help them be a gracious winner. And when they lose, they can keep perspective on the fact that they just learned an incredible lesson. It's really easy to win, as Father said it is. When you win, you assume you did everything right. You're not nearly as critical of yourself. When you lose, you can take a lesson away from it. And so that's what we can do. You know, that individual athlete, largely their pep talk is totally internal. I got to get myself going. I got to focus on myself, and even my victory can seem really singular. But let's get athletes together. Let's have them realize the greater good. When I go ski racing, or when I would go ski racing, I wasn't just ski racing for me. I was ski racing for my family. I was ski racing for the U.S. ski team. I was ski racing for our nation. I was ski racing for the Lord. I mean, keep that eternal perspective within your programs. It's so much bigger than high school tennis or middle school basketball. It's so much bigger than that. This is just a part of the puzzle for these guys. And they get to spend copious amounts of time together. So if we don't work on character, we're going to be rubbing each other raw, right? It should be that we're like that pocket full of rocks, and go, you know, over time we tumble each other into beautiful, smooth, polished roundness. That we've been through it together, and we've shaved off those bumps and rough spots, and we can help polish each other. And in our teams, I'm going to give you another analogy. I love the pickle jar analogy. I use it in my own life. I wish I put it more into practice, but a pickle jar, you know, if you fill it up with sand, you don't have room for that big rock. You don't have room to fit in the big, solid rock, or even lesser sized rocks, okay? But if you on your team consider virtue to be the highest thing you're helping to impart in these kids and in their life, you can put that in as a rock in that pickle jar. And then you can fill it in with lesser rocks, and still lesser rocks. And at the end, there's still going to be plenty of room to pour in all kinds of sand to fill in the gaps. Okay, but if we're worried about the sand, and we don't ever fit in what's most important into each practice, we don't find some way through some words or some action to convey the truth, then we really missed the target. We really missed it. So every day, start your practice with your pickle jar. Every season. And maybe have the kids even do an exercise where they define what is in their pickle jar. What is their big rock they're putting in there? What are their lesser rocks? You know, I do that in life too. It's like, what is the most important thing I can accomplish for Christ? There's plenty of room for sand. Facebook, sand. Twitter, sand. That's what we pour through all those cracks, sand. But if we fill up our day, you know, with those Facebook and Twitter and eBay and whatever, we're like so distracted, and we don't ever fit the big rock in there. The big rock will just never be in there. We can look back and wonder why. So a really supportive team or association, which all of you are being called to, can help foster the best performance in any athlete, given their interest in that athlete's success. You want them to be successful. Even the kids on your team that drive you crazy, you would want success for them. You know, I wished I'd have felt that at times, to have that team support behind me. I was the athlete sometimes who just checked in with a coach with the internet. He would write me my training, I would go train, and I would write back. I felt so disjointed from him. Not someone there to really push me. You guys are going to see your athletes all the time this year. You're going to be that person that can impact them. And we're going to talk about how in just a little bit. I want to share a little more of my experience, because I really don't think anything I did should be extraordinary. You know, I'm here today to say, like, I went to when I was at the Olympics, my family and I would go to daily mass, and we'd step into that chapel, and there was the priest and 6 very elderly sisters, and no one else, just us. And outside the doors of that church, right in an Olympic host village, the streets just bustling with athletes from around the world and spectators and everyone it takes to pull off of the Olympic Games, the staff, the promoters, everyone. And at a midday mass in Italy, hello to the Olympics in Italy, a few hours from Rome, to be the only Catholics in there for the daily mass. Why? That shouldn't be extraordinary. That shouldn't be extraordinary. I shouldn't have to say today that I did something that seemed extraordinary. That should be ordinary. Your kids should be encouraged to be that faithful. You want them to be faithful to your team, right? It's man, if they miss a practice, we're so concerned about not breaking the laws of man, but oftentimes we break the laws of God and just count it as nothing. So not important. But we have a sports thing to get to. Okay, so help them gain that perspective, that context in their lives. As coaches, we've got to be in it for more than their just physical development. And it pains me to see those athletes who didn't have that virtuous foundation and were even crummy or criminal persons off the field. The inconsistency is maddening, and it makes you realize their use of sports in an indirected way that is just terrible. And so, you know, I'm going to use an example like Lance Armstrong. I thought, man, what a family man. He started having kids at the same time I started having kids. And I thought, what a family man. He's got these twins. Oh, and his cute wife. Oh, what a family man. Oh, and a cancer survivor. You know, and now it's like, wow. It was part of like the biggest doping scandal in sports of all time. You start reading what's coming out, and you're like, how could that person be that inconsistent for me? It makes me question, you know, integrity. So don't teach your kids, exhibit yourselves that you're the same person on and off the field. When Coach Joe Walters goes home, he's that same consistent, virtuous man for his wife, for his kids. When he goes to Mass on Sunday, he's that same consistent, virtuous parishioner within his parish. Wherever he is, be consistent, you guys. Be consistent. We all are up against that challenge. I mean, I went so far as to look up the 50 most crooked athletes at Bleacher Report. I mean, they had to cut it off at 50. I think the article, they were like, dude, 50, that's all. That's all we're going to do in expose on 50, you know? That's only what they know of people. Your kids want to see your transparency. They want to see your transparency. Okay, so be the same on and off the field. You'll teach them to be the same on and off the field. You'll teach them when they're given their all at practice, and they're lifting more, and they're running faster, and they're hitting harder, and they're more focused, and they're hydrated, and they've slept, and they're like doing everything right, then they're going to do that the rest of their life. They're going to have that consistency. And you'll see in that movie, it's homework. You all have to watch it. It gets really messy when the one athlete goes to a major party. It gets really messy. That's the same with us. I'm just going to bring it back to the faith. We can't not. This is what it's about. Our communion in the Holy Eucharist. We take our sin and we individualize it. You might be a man. You might say, no one needs to know my struggle with pornography or whatever it is you struggle with. That doesn't affect me.